Hey everyone, it's Elena, and welcome back to What Was Meant. Today we're going to talk about something that you may not have named yet, but might sound familiar once we talk about the signs. The covertly narcissistic mother. Now, she may not be as loud and obvious as the typical narcissist, but the damage that she causes can be just as bad, or since she's your mother, even worse. For each of the signs that we're going to talk about today, I'm going to give you first a personal example from my life, followed by a more general example, so you can see the different ways it might show up. Before we get started, I have a quick note. I'm not a therapist, and this is not meant to replace professional advice. I am a survivor of more than my share of trauma who's done the hard work and come out stronger for it on the other side. One thing that I have noticed in my work that I've done is that once you can name the problem, in this case, narcissistic behavior and covert narcissistic behavior specifically, it helps you in your healing process. And so that's my hope for you today as we discuss these signs of the covertly narcissistic mother. So without further ado, let's get started. We're going to name 10 signs of the covertly narcissistic mother that she trained you to overlook. Sign number 1, playing the victim or martyr. When I was in labor with my first child, I had a serious complication that caused my blood platelets to drop really low, really fast. They dropped to a point that my doctor told my husband if they fell any further, I would need a blood transfusion to save both my life and our baby's life. And as you can imagine, we'd been married for just under 11 months at the time, so he was stressed out. I was having really bad contractions, so he couldn't talk to me, and he turned to my mother for support. Instead of showing any concern for me or the baby, she told him that I'd signed a no blood card when I was a kid and that they shouldn't give me a transfusion. And then she started preaching about why Jehovah's Witnesses don't accept blood transfusions, even though I'd never been baptized and was no longer a part of that religion. She was so wrapped up in the idea of being a martyr for her faith with me as her proxy, and never even shed a tear at the thought of losing me and the baby. Fortunately, the doctor went ahead and ordered blood and had it on standby, and my platelets leveled off, so she didn't get to play the role of martyr for very long. In your family, this could look like your mother saying that she sacrificed her life so you could have yours. She might have stayed in a bad marriage or not pursued a career for your sake, according to her. She frames every choice that she made, whether or not you asked for it or benefited from it, as a noble act of martyrdom. So why is this covert narcissism? Well, it looks like selflessness or conviction on the surface, but it's really an emotional power play. She uses guilt and obligation and pity to control the narrative. Sign number 2, always redirecting attention to herself. So my example for this one happened a few days after I told my parents that an uncle had sexually abused me from the ages of 6 through 8. I was 11 years old and I was sitting in the kitchen with my mother when I started crying. She asked me why I was crying, and I told her because of what my uncle had done to me. She told me to shut up, and then she said, when I was little, a neighbor boy tried something with me, but I told my mother immediately, unlike you. Here's a more general example. Let's say that you open up to your mother finally about feeling depressed and burned out, and she responds with, you think you have it bad? When I was your age, I worked 2 jobs and had no one to help me. You kids don't know real stress. The focus instantly shifts to her, leaving you feeling guilty for even speaking up. So why is this a sign of covert narcissism? Well, this tactic can be subtle but devastating. It invalidates your experience and shifts the focus to your mother, leaving you feeling guilty for even having emotions. And it puts the narcissistic mother exactly where she likes to be, at the center of the story. Sign number 3, competing with you. When I was a teenager, my mother would often try to get me in trouble with my father, and I didn't understand why until a few years later. One day when I was pregnant with my first child, I got home from work, and I was sitting there with my husband when my mother called. I put her on speakerphone, and she casually said that she'd had a huge fight with my father the night before, and she told him that she knew he'd been messing with me when I was a teenager. And by messing with me, she meant that she thought for all those years that my father was having sex with me, which is disgusting. I told her that she was wrong. He'd never tried anything like that with me. But when I thought about it later, it explained a lot. The shit she stirred, the drama she caused, and all the craziness throughout my teenage years and my childhood, just because she thought I was a rival and she had to compete with me. Hopefully you haven't been through anything quite that heinous, so let me give you something that's a little more general. Let's say you land a new job or a promotion, or you start a new business, and you tell your mother your good news, hoping for encouragement. And she says, I always wanted to do something like that, but I had to give up everything for you kids. A couple of weeks goes by and she says, still working on that side hustle? I thought you'd be further along by now. Instead of celebrating your success, she reframes it as something that's self-indulgent or inferior, subtly implying that you'll never live up to her sacrifices and that you shouldn't even try. So why is this a sign of covert narcissism? Well, a covertly narcissistic mother may project her own feelings of being unwanted, unsuccessful, or emotionally disconnected from her partner onto her daughter. If she sees her daughter as younger, more attractive, or more ambitious than she is, that might trigger feelings of inadequacy that she doesn't know how to process, so she turns them outward, either by making up crazy stories that she believes or by making snide comments just to rain on your parade. Sign number 4, failure to protect and siding with the abuser. My example for this happened when I was 17 years old and a senior in high school. The school year had just begun, and I had borrowed a sweatshirt of my father's and worn it to the high school football jamboree. About 2 weeks later, my younger brother told my father I'd worn his sweatshirt. My father sent my brother and my younger sister outside to play and called me into the living room. While my mother sat on the couch and watched, my father asked me why I'd worn his sweatshirt without permission. I apologized and said that I thought it was cool. It had a picture of a cartoon bull with a circle and a slash through it, like no bull. He walked over to me, took my glasses off my face, and then hit me across my face so hard that I fell to the floor. He told me to get back up, and as soon as I was back on my feet, he hit me again, even harder, so hard that I fell to the floor again and peed on myself. My mother then just turned to him and said, okay, are you ready to go to the video store? And they left me laying there. A few days later, I was out shopping with my mother, and I asked her why she hadn't protected me or done anything to help me. She turned to me and said, well, you wore his clothes without permission. What did you expect me to do? So for a more general example, let's say you tell your mother that a family friend has crossed boundaries with you or made you feel uncomfortable. And she says, oh, he was just being playful. Why do you always take things the wrong way? You always blow things out of proportion. She invalidates your experience and accuses you of overreacting. So why is this a sign of covert narcissism? Well, a covertly narcissistic mother will often side with an abuser because protecting her daughter will require her to face discomfort, take responsibility, or disrupt her own image of being a great wife and mother. Instead, she minimizes the abuse, blames the daughter, or stays silent, not out of ignorance, but out of a wish to preserve the status quo. Her priority isn't her daughter's safety, it's her own comfort, control, and relationships, even at the expense of her daughter's well-being. Sign number 5, parentifying the empathic child. So if you, like me, are an empath, or you wear your heart on your sleeve, or you're just a nice person, guess what? You probably became your mother's emotional caretaker. She confides in you like you're her therapist. She hands you your siblings like you're the second mom, and you didn't get to be a child. When my husband first met my younger sister, he asked me why she kept saying Mott, Lena, when she spoke to me. I explained to him that when she was little, she called me mom, because from the time she was born, which was just a few days before my 7th birthday, I took care of her, I protected her, I even changed her diapers to make sure that nobody else had access to hurt her. When she started talking, my mother would ask me what she was saying because my mother had shifted the role of protector and basically mother to me. A more general example of this might look like your mother constantly complaining to you or venting to you about her marriage, her emotional struggles, or her finances. She might even say, you're the only one that I could talk to about this. What would I ever do without you? Over time, you start to feel responsible for her emotional well-being, putting your mental health and needs on the back burner. So why is this a sign of covert narcissism? Covertly narcissistic mothers operate from a chronic victim mindset. If she's feeling overburdened, unsupported, or abandoned emotionally, she'll often turn to her most empathetic child, usually the daughter, but sometimes the son, for emotional support to meet her unmet needs. At times, it might feel like it's praise because it's a huge responsibility, but it's actually a form of emotional role reversal that robs you of your childhood. Sign number 6, disparagement disguised as humor. My example for this one was something that made me realize that if she was allowed to, my mother would treat my children the same way she treated me. It was shortly after the birth of my first child, and a good friend of mine threw a baby shower for me at my parents' house. Just before it was about to begin, my mother walks out of her bedroom holding a dusty teddy bear clock in her hands, and she makes a big production saying, "Oh no, I forgot to wrap this." And so she goes into the kitchen, grabs a roll of paper towels, and then comes out, and I kid you not, she takes a paper towel, wraps it around this teddy bear clock, and then secures it shut with a piece of duct tape, laughing the whole time like it was a big joke. And yes, that was her gift to her first grandchild. And in case you don't relate to that one, because who does that? Here's a more general example. Let's say it's your college graduation, a huge milestone you've worked really hard for. You put your cap and gown on, you come out to the room, and your mother looks at you and says, "Wow, you actually made it through without quitting. You really surprised me." She says it with a smile and a laugh like she's just kidding, but underneath it's not funny, it's a dig. She's reframing your accomplishment as something that you didn't deserve and you didn't work hard for. And she takes the joy out of your special day. If you call it out later, she brushes it off with, "Oh, what are you making a big deal out of it? I was just joking." So, why is this a sign of covert narcissism? Disparaging you through jokes allows a covertly narcissistic mother to tear you down while maintaining plausible deniability. It's a way to express criticism, jealousy, or resentment without appearing overtly cruel. Ultimately, she's just playing mind games with you in a way that chips away at your self worth and your confidence while making it really hard to defend yourself. Sign number 7, withholding affection or approval as punishment. When I was 12 years old, I won an essay contest, with the prize being 2 tickets to music legend Quincy Jones's 50th birthday concert and private after party.
The community concert is the finale for the Quincy Jones Seattle birthday party. At 50, we hope the musical wizard is only just beginning.
Leading up to the event, my mother was uncharacteristically nice. She took me to Nordstrom's to get a special outfit, and she called a family friend and asked him to drive us to the concert in a limousine. At the after party, she went into full charm mode, clearly loving rubbing elbows with so many famous people. When she started flirting with a chart-topping musician who shall remain unnamed, it was like I wasn't even there. Left alone, I looked around and I saw kids my age drinking champagne, and I got really, really uncomfortable. I've never been comfortable or good with pretentious people or fake people, and there were a lot of them at the party. So I went out into the lobby and I started to cry. I was there by myself for quite a while until somebody eventually told my mother I was out there, or she found me and realized I wasn't with her. Instead of being concerned about me being so upset, she told me what an embarrassment I was and called for our limo to take us home. On the ride home, she gave me the silent treatment, wouldn't say a word to me. And when we got home, she sent me to my room and then loudly vented to my father about how I ruined her evening, even though if I hadn't won the contest, she wouldn't have been there in the first place. So here's another scenario. Let's say that you decide to spend the holidays with your partner's family for the first time ever, and you tell your mother well in advance, and she says, "Go ahead, do what you want." When the holidays roll around, she won't return your calls, she won't return your texts, and she ignores a gift that you sent. And then you find out she told your other relatives, "I guess she has her own traditions now, I don't matter anymore." She acts like she's hurt, but it's actually a deliberate punishment for your independence. So why is this a sign of covert narcissism? Covertly narcissistic mothers usually don't yell and scream. They withdraw their love as a way to maintain control or regain control. By withholding affection or approval, they manipulate you into feeling guilty or wrong for having needs or setting boundaries. It's emotional punishment wrapped in self-pity, keeping you in the role of the bad child while allowing them to maintain their role as the hurt, selfless mother. Sign number 8, passive-aggressiveness as a weapon. So as a kid, I was fairly skinny due to what I now know as my awesome metabolism that I wish I had back. My mother would constantly criticize my weight and tell me that she thought I was an anorexic and that she didn't want me to go the way of Karen Carpenter, a singer who died from anorexia. She said this so much that I actually checked out books about anorexia from the library to see if she was right, and after reading up about it, determined that she was not. Still, I was very insecure about my body for years due to the comments from my mother and others in my family of origin. On a side note, my husband recently said to me that he had wondered why I knew so much about Karen Carpenter, and this is why. Here's another example. You make a big life decision, maybe moving to another city, changing careers, or getting engaged. Your mother reacts with concern, but her tone is full of disapproval. Well, if you're sure this is what you want, I just hope you don't regret it later. She might even say it in front of other people, trying to plant seeds of doubt while still appearing caring. But she never tells you exactly what her issue is with your decision. So why is this a sign of covert narcissism? Well, passive aggressiveness allows the mother to express hostility, control, or resentment in a backhanded way. By using sarcasm, condescension, or criticism disguised as concern, she avoids accountability while still undermining her child's confidence. It's a way to punish, manipulate, or dominate emotionally without ever raising her voice. This keeps her image intact while slowly eroding the child's sense of self. Sign number 9, boundary violations and gossip. When I was a young adult living on my own, I was out with my mother running errands one day when she, out of the blue, started telling me about a very private incident with one of my siblings. She went into intimate detail and made me really uncomfortable. And I was wondering why she felt the need to share that kind of thing with me when it was such a violation of my siblings' privacy. It was clear that she didn't have any boundaries. That was something she didn't respect, and that she regarded intimate stories that put her kids in a bad light as something to be spread like juicy gossip. Here's a more general scenario. You take your mother into your confidence and tell her that you're seeing a therapist. You ask her to keep it private. And a week later, a cousin calls you and says, I had dinner with your mother last night and she says you're seeing someone about your issues. She seems really worried about you. When you confront your mother, she plays innocent. I didn't say anything bad. Why are you so sensitive? Your trust is broken, your boundaries are violated, and your pain is turned into a story for others disguised as concern. So why is this a sign of covert narcissism? A covertly narcissistic mother shares your private information because it gives her control over how others see you and reinforces her role as a concerned, selfless parent. Disregarding your boundaries is a way to subtly assert dominance. If she can't control you directly, she'll control who knows what about you. Sign number 10, emotional exploitation and gaslighting. One of my all-time favorite movies is a 1944 black and white film called Gaslight. Why? Because it completely validates my experience with my family of origin before I went no contact. When you live with one or more narcissistic family members, up is down, black is white, and things that you know for a fact happen are conveniently rewritten to put others in a better light.
Did anyone notice this? I feel like I'm taking crazy pills!
And that takes me to my personal example for this one. 6 years after going no contact with my family of origin, I ran into my mother at a store one day. We talked about why I cut them off and went no contact. And a few weeks later, she wrote to me saying that she was disturbed with our conversation because I thought that she hadn't protected me from, quote unquote, things that were going on during my childhood. She went so far as to say that when the truth came out about my uncle sexually abusing me, he was long gone to another state and that my father tried to find him but couldn't because he was gone. The reality of that was that when I told them about the fact that my uncle had raped me from the ages of 6 through 8, my parents blamed me and then told me to be nice to him on the occasions that he came to our house after that. He actually lived up the street about 2 blocks away with his best friend. She had completely rewritten history, and it was a blatant example of gaslighting. Here's another example. You tell your mother that something she said hurt you, and she responds with, I never said that. You're just putting words in my mouth, like always. Then she flips it. You're the one who's always attacking me, and I'm tired of walking on eggshells. She invalidates your feelings, flips the narrative, and paints herself as the victim, leaving you confused and feeling guilty. So why is this a sign of covert narcissism? Well, gaslighting is a key sign of a covertly narcissistic mother because it allows her to alter reality while maintaining a facade of innocence. Instead of openly controlling her daughter through rage or domination, she uses denial, distortion, and blame to make her daughter doubt her own memory. So that concludes my list of 10 signs that, like me, you just might have a covertly narcissistic mother. If you've been nodding your head along to this list, you're not alone. Tactics used by covert narcissists are insidious and sneaky and amount to a mental and emotional abuse that often goes unnoticed because it's hidden behind guilt and obligation, pity, and control. And as I wrap this up, I want to say a personal thing to you. Even though your mother may have made you feel like your thoughts and your feelings didn't matter, they do matter, and you absolutely matter. You are not crazy or ungrateful, and you are allowed to name the harm and set boundaries. I know because I've been there. And one thing I've learned over the years is that sometimes just naming the harm goes a long way towards healing from it. If this spoke to you, please like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. And if you know of somebody who might benefit from this video, please share it with them. In upcoming videos, I'll be discussing textbook examples of what it's like to deal with a narcissist, not just the covert ones, and ways that you can approach them in a way that gives you both closure and allows you to reclaim your power. And if you've ever thought of taking a break from toxic family members, you might be interested in my story of celebrating 30 years going no contact with my family of origin right here. As always, my name is Elena. This is What Was Meant, and thank you for watching. Have a great day.